And up next in the battle for the White House, President Bush gets a big jump in the polls thanks to the arrest of Saddam Hussein. And later in the Hardball debate, the chairman of the 9/11 Commission says the deadliest terror attack on U.S. soil could have been prevented. How's that for a hot one? I'll be back to talk to Kristen Breitweiser, who lost her husband on 9/11. You're watching Hardball. Kristen Breitweiser is a 9/11 widow who fought for the creation of the Independent Commission on the 9/11 attacks. And Raymond Tanter is a former National Security Council member in the Reagan administration. Kristen, thanks for coming back. The same topic as always. Could this have been prevented? What do you know now, thanks to what Tom Kean had to say?
Well, I mean, I think it doesn't come as a surprise that he stated that 9/11 could have been prevented. I think what is a surprise is that he did, in fact, come out and acknowledge that people should be held accountable. And I think that in order for us to make sure as a country that 9/11 will never happen again, we need to make sure that the individuals who are responsible for the failures are held accountable. And the way we do that is by Governor Kean and the rest of the commissioners producing a comprehensive, definitive report that will indeed hold people accountable for their failures on that morning.
Let me go to Raymond Tanter. Your thoughts about why Tom Kean, a former governor of New Jersey, a moderate Republican, maybe too independent a Republican by some people's standards, has said something so inflammatory as to say it could have been prevented at this point.
Chris, Governor Kean is engaged in Monday morning quarterbacking. Do you know why it's easier to do quarterbacking on Monday morning? Because you know what the outcome is. It's simply not fair to think that after the fact you know what happened, you could have known before the fact occurred. Think about the famous revolutions in history. The Russian Revolution, the French Revolution, the Iranian Revolution. No one predicted any of these humongous events in history. Iraq crosses the border into Kuwait. Who predicted that one? Israel attacks Syria and Egypt. No one predicted that. Egypt,
but you can
Syria
turn on the, but you can use your parallel. Go ahead.
Respectfully,
Kristen,
if I could just jump in, I don't think it's Monday morning quarterbacking. I think that the historical record is replete with instances of Al Qaeda looking into using planes as weapons. The hijackers were training in U.S. military flight schools. The FBI had 13 open files on individual with connections to the hijackers. We had money transfers coming from overseas from individuals with contacts with Osama bin Laden to the hijackers, increments above $10,000, which should have been picked up by our intelligence agencies. We have Pentagon reports stating that planes could be used as weapons. You know, this is not Monday morning quarterbacking. This should have been known, and we need to find out why our national security advisor came out and stated that she had no idea planes could be used as weapons. She should have known, and we need to find out why she did not know.
Well, with all due respect, I think you can hold people accountable, but you have to know what is knowable. First of all, many studies are done in the U.S. government, some of which say that you can do all kinds of things. The National Security Advisor sits at the top of a pyramid, and at the bottom you have all of these studies being done. She didn't have a study in front of her with respect to the contingency that you would have planes knocking down buildings. So I think that it's unfair.
You don't need a study when you had Egypt Air in 1989, which was your first example of a suicide hijacking. You don't need studies when you have John Deutsch in 1996 giving a statement that there is a Center for Terrorism, a CTC, between the FBI and the CIA, which sole job is to coordinate information from overseas and from, you know, the U.S. intelligence agencies, the DIA, the NSA, the State Department, to put that information together. We already had TTIC back in 1996, and what we need to find out is why that did not work on the morning of 9/11.
In fact, I think you're on the right track now because you're looking toward the future. There's something called stovepiping in the intelligence business. Stovepiping says that you have a bit of evidence coming in through, say, the FBI and some evidence coming through the CIA. It goes up the stovepipe and then out into the atmosphere. You don't have that now. You have cross-fertilization. You have people talking to one another.
According to John Deutsch, who was the DCI in 1990s. According to John Deutsch,
let him finish, and then point out.
I doubt whether you have the kind of catastrophic intelligence failure in of the type of 9/11 as a result of the fact that stovepiping no longer exists, Chris.
In 1996, John Deutsch, who was DCI, stated to a group of individuals at Georgetown University, he was extolling the virtues of the intel community in their attempts to fight counterterrorism, groups like Al Qaeda. Stovetyping is an unacceptable excuse because we had the procedures, we had the interagency communications, we had the infiltration of the terrorist groups, the human, and why didn't it work on the morning of 9/11?
Okay, Kristen, if you were President of the United States the morning or the day before September 11, 2001, knowing all that you know now, do some Monday morning quarterbacking. What would you have done to prevent this from happening? If you didn't know what airport, you didn't know how it was going to fit together, but you had some knowledge of what it might look like, how would you have prevented it?
Undoubtedly, I think that I would have told the public. I would have told people like my husband and the 3,000 others that worked in New York City and that decided to fly on planes that day that we were a nation under an imminent threat, that the airlines were a target. And after the first building in New York City was hit, then you know what? People like my husband in the second building would have immediately fled. They would have immediately evacuated that second tower because they wouldn't have thought it was an accident. People like Donald Rumsfeld may not have sat at his desk for 45 minutes until the Pentagon was hit. People like the president would not have sat there for 25 minutes in front of a group of children. They would have acted more decisively. Lives would have been saved. I would have informed the public.
It sounds like the problem's at the top.
It does.
Okay, thank you. It's great having you on again. Thank you very much. Kristen Breitweiser and my new pal, Raymond Tanter. Thank you for coming up.